We've reached the leader of the Conservative Party, the interim leader of the Conservative Party, Candice Bergen. Hi, Ms. Bergen. Pleasure to welcome you back to the program.
Hi, Vashi.
In the lead up to this budget, your party signaled a concern about the rising cost of living and your hope that this budget would address that. This budget does aim to help Canadians with the cost of childcare, the cost of dental care, buying your first home or buying a home, period. Isn't that exactly what your party is looking for?
Well, we were looking for three things in the budget. We were looking for controlled spending, which will in turn control inflation. Inflation, as you know, is at a 30-year high. Canadians are reeling with the cost of everything. So secondly, we were looking for some relief for Canadians in the form of tax cuts, substantial tax cuts. And thirdly, we were looking for a real solution and some real ideas to address the housing inflation crisis. No, what we've seen, Vashi, isn't something that we think is good for Canada in the long term. It's not good for growth. It's not good for investment. And it will make the cost of everything go up. What we have seen over the last 6 years, and it's ironic and sad to see, the more these guys spend, the more the cost of literally everything goes up. So we're continuing to see it. This is a very a budget that's been very much influenced by the NDP, and it's not good for Canadians in the long term.
To be fair, Ms. Bergen, though, is your characterization of the spending of this budget actually accurate? I mean, I understood that what was signaled prior to the budget sounded like it would be just as much spending as we've seen in previous years. But this budget shows that, for example, the deficit will go down to $8.4 billion in the year 2026 to 2027. There's about $30 billion of new spending. Is that really as out of control as you're painting it?
Well, I think what our concern is we look at the history of what the government has done, and that they've not been responsible. When things are good, they are not responsible with the finances of the country. You add to the mix, they are now very heavily influenced by the NDP, and they have commitments that they've made to the NDP so that they can stay in power. So you put all of that together, you know that they've doubled the deficit since they've come to power. You know that they've made the government 50% bigger in terms of permanent programs, to 25% just over the last 2 years. So all of that, Vashi, creates a lot of uncertainty, not just for Conservatives, but I would say for many longtime Liberals, individuals who are maybe not partisan Liberals, but they're Liberals in how they vote and how they believe the country should be governed. And they are even looking at what the Prime Minister and his government has done over the last 6 years. They shake their head and they are very worried. This budget is indicative of the fact that they are indebted to the NDP. So we've seen some of their commitments starting this budget, but they're going to continue over the next few years. And it's going to be hard and bad for the economy of the country, and Canadians will keep paying the price.
But respectfully, again, Ms. Bergen, if you're characterizing them as inflating, for example, the size of government and spending just for the heck of it, and growing, as you pointed out, the size of that by 25% in the last 2 years. I mean, it was a pandemic. People lost their jobs. They didn't have it. Were they wrong to do that? Is that what you're saying?
No, that was spending that was needed. They've created permanent programs in the last 2 years, and that's what they continue to do. They continue to create big, bulky, expensive government programs that end up resulting in Canadians paying more for everything. That's just a fact. It seems like the Liberals think that the more they spend, the more Canadians will save. I don't know what their thinking is. All I know is it's not working. And this last year alone, they've taken in more revenue than anybody ever expected. Why? Because of the cost of everything going up and Canadians paying more. Instead of giving that back to Canadians in the form of tax cuts and recognizing that, the Liberals keep increasing taxes. And you know, we've asked them a couple of weeks ago if they would even give a GST holiday tax break to Canadians. Just send the signal that they believe in some tax reduction. You know, we don't believe in the Liberal carbon tax. We would have liked to have seen them stop that. But even if they would have done that temporarily, but their continual agenda, it's textbook NDP, is tax and spend. Tax and spend. So I think it was interesting today. The Minister of Finance wore a blue dress, and she was using words like responsible fiscal management, trying to speak and look the part of a more fiscal responsible, maybe a conservative. Maybe I shouldn't say that. but she's acting much more like an NDPer. So very, very interesting to watch, but we're concerned. We think Canadians will end up suffering through this.
But on that central argument that the economic argument that you're making, that the level of spending is what is causing Canadians to have to pay more for things, I think it's fair to say that's not the whole truth. That the supply issues are certainly constraining supply in this country, and demand is outpacing them. So when you propose, for example, a tax cut as well, that could further expand or amplify the pressure on inflation too, right? If people have more money to spend and the supply continues to be constrained because of factors outside of Canada's control, they may continue to pay more for everything.
Listen, I believe whether it's supply in terms of housing supply, supply chain issues, other issues around supply that we've actually talked to the government about previously that we knew would be a challenge. Definitely, the government needs to address that. But you never fix an inflation problem by government spending more and by printing more money and furthering big government programs. That doesn't work. And again, the proof is in what we've seen over the last 6 years. In good times, the government spends. In bad times, they spend when they should be spending. In crisis, they spend. Then, when they get a windfall, they keep spending. And it's never to give Canadians a tax break. It's always on big permanent programs and then increased spending. And all you have to do is go to the gas station, go to the grocery store, see how much your rent is, or if you want to buy a house, what it costs. And the proof is everything is going up.
I imagine, Ms. Bergen, Canadians are listening to this, and probably many of whom share your concern about the burden that taxpayers will feel in the future because of the size of the deficit or even the level of spending. But they're wondering, okay, if you were the Prime Minister, if you were in power, what of this spending would you not spend? Would you not offer better prices, for example, for childcare? Would you not help Canadians with the price of dental care? Would you not help them buy their first home? Would you not help with the construction of homes? What would you stop spending on besides the infrastructure bank?
Well, the infrastructure bank, that's a big one. There's a lot of wasteful spending that the government has indulged themselves in over the last 6 years. There's a litany of things that we believe are wasteful, that have not accomplished what the government said that they would accomplish. The more they spend, the environment, there's another great example of the more they spend on so-called green projects, the worse emissions are. The more they spend, the more costlier things are. So I do want to talk briefly, though. You mentioned a dental program. Definitely conservatives believe, and we believe that whether it's low-income Canadians, children who need dental care, that there is a place for that. We believe provinces are best suited to deliver that. Again, the federal government creates a big program to deliver dental care. Mark my words, Vashi. It will be worse dental care than the provinces would ever be able to deliver. So the federal government
they'd still have to spend the money for the provinces to do it too.
Well, that's different. But Vashi, absolutely, send the provinces their healthcare transfers, 100%. But
how will that affect the bottom line? How does that rein in spending?
Let me just finish my thought on that. Let me finish my thought on that. Absolutely, send the provincial government the money that you committed as the federal government. Let them do the job that is within their jurisdiction. So that's the question around dental care. When it comes to spending, this government has continued to spend excessively. As I said, when times are good, they spend. When times are bad, they spend. On the Conservative side, listen, we are unashamedly believers in lower taxes, less government spending, responsible policy that attracts investment, that sees people working in every sector, in every region of the country, whether it's fisheries, whether it's agriculture, oil and gas, LNG, mining, manufacturing. We believe the government should create a climate and an atmosphere where people can excel right across the country, lower taxes for Canadians, and show some responsibility. This government has not done this, and in fact, we don't even recognize the Liberals anymore. They've become so NDP. I don't think many Canadians would even recognize who they are any longer.
Respectfully, Ms. Bergen, I just have a few seconds, but you didn't answer the substance of the question. What exactly of these programs would you no longer give Canadians? Would you, if you were Prime Minister, say, no, this stuff's off the table?
There's a lot of spending that the government has done. The childcare is an example. We'll see how much money gets out and how much Canadians actually benefit from it. Well, Vashi, We've been very clear. We don't believe that big government programs are the answer. When it comes to childcare, I've raised 3 children. I know you have a child. I can tell you in places where I grew up in Ward, Manitoba, where I raised my kids, institutionalized daycare was not the answer. I needed some flexibility, and there are a lot of moms, a lot of dads that are looking for flexibility in childcare. So no, we don't have a lot of faith in the Liberal government to deliver what Canadians need when it comes to flexibility or some options when it comes to childcare.
Okay, Ms. Bergen, I'm out of time. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.